Welcome to this profound exploration of the ego in marriage, noticing the self that clings, a journey that invites us to dive deeply into the inner workings of the mind, the heart, and the relationship we share with our partner. Marriage, as many of us know, is one of life's most profound and transformative unions. It's a space where two souls come together, not just in the fulfillment of their personal desires, but in the shared experience of growth, love, vulnerability, and personal development. While this union holds the potential for profound intimacy and connection, it is also the space where our egos can make themselves known, subtly creating barriers between partners and distorting the connection that might otherwise be there. In this exploration, we will not only uncover how the ego shows up in marriage, but also look at the deeper process of noticing and understanding it. By cultivating awareness of the ego's influence, we can create a relationship that is built not on self-protection and self-interest, but on a deep, compassionate connection, where love transcends the needs of the individual. The ego, at its core, is the mental construct we build around our sense of self. It comprises our thoughts, beliefs, desires, and fears, shaping our identity. The ego isn't inherently bad. It's a natural part of the human condition, and in many ways, it serves as a useful tool for navigating the world. However, when we become overly identified with the ego, it begins to create problems in our relationships. In marriage, the ego can show up in many ways, as defensiveness, as pride, as the constant need for validation, or as an attachment to old stories that no longer serve us. It is the part of us that seeks to protect its fragile sense of identity, often at the expense of the other person in the relationship. And yet, this clinging to self is not the essence of who we are. Beneath the ego lies a deep well of love, connection, and shared humanity. This is where mindfulness comes in. Through awareness of the ego's tendencies, we can learn to step back and observe it without becoming entangled in it. When we learn to recognize the ego in ourselves and in our partner, we create a space of deeper understanding, empathy, and ultimately love. In the day-to-day experience of marriage, the ego often shows up in the most subtle of ways, and it can take on many different forms. One of the most common ways the ego manifests is through defensiveness. When our partner criticizes us or challenges us, the ego's knee-jerk response is to defend itself, to protect its image, or to fight to maintain a sense of superiority. The ego doesn't want to feel wrong or inadequate, and so it rises up, often with intensity, to guard its sense of self. In these moments, we may feel ourselves becoming defensive, justifying our actions or emotions, or even dismissing our partner's feelings in an attempt to protect our own pride. The ego can convince us that being right is the most important thing. But when we pause, when we practice noticing this reaction, we can begin to see it for what it is: a temporary thought pattern, a passing feeling that does not define who we are at our core. In these moments, the practice of mindfulness can help us take a step back from the ego's pull and create space for more compassionate and open dialogue with our partner. Likewise, the ego often shows up through pride. Pride is the voice inside that refuses to admit when we've made a mistake or hurt our partner. It holds on to the idea that I am right, or I should not be the one to apologize. This can be particularly damaging in a marriage, where vulnerability, humility, and honesty are the foundation of trust and intimacy. Pride erects walls between partners, preventing the healing that comes from acknowledgement and reconciliation. The ego thrives on these walls, on the idea of self-protection, of maintaining the image of perfection or superiority. But love does not reside in pride. Love lives in the ability to soften, to admit when we are wrong, and to reach across the divide of misunderstanding to make amends. When we learn to notice the ego's attachment to pride, we begin to loosen its grip, allowing us to offer our true selves to our partner, flaws, mistakes, and all. This practice requires great humility, but it is through this humility that the ego's clinging dissolves, allowing for deeper connection and intimacy. Another way the ego shows up in marriage is through control. The ego thrives on the need for certainty, for predictability, and for things to go a certain way. In marriage, this can manifest as the need to control our partner's actions, decisions, or behaviors. The ego might tell us that we know best, that our way is the right way, or that our needs should take precedence over our partner's needs. The desire to control, to dictate how things should unfold, is rooted in the ego's fear of uncertainty or discomfort. It fears being exposed, being vulnerable, or allowing the relationship to evolve naturally. But control is the antithesis of intimacy. Intimacy requires space to grow, space for both partners to show up as they are, without the pressure of needing to conform to expectations or meet rigid standards. The more we cling to control, the more we stifle the fluidity of the relationship. However, when we begin to notice the ego's desire to control, we can consciously choose to release that need. We can trust our partner's ability to navigate their own journey and allow the relationship to unfold with greater ease and mutual respect. In doing so, we create a marriage that is based on collaboration, mutual support, and the freedom to be one's authentic self. One of the most insidious ways the ego shows up in marriage is through old stories and narratives. These stories are the scripts we have internalized over the years, shaped by past experiences, childhood conditioning, societal expectations, and even previous relationships. These narratives often shape how we expect our partner to behave, how we expect love to feel, and what we believe our role should be in the relationship. The ego clings to these stories, believing them to be true, even when they no longer serve us. For example, we may have an old story that says, love means never having to ask for help, or a good partner is always self-sufficient. These stories can create a lot of tension in the relationship, as they may not align with our partner's way of expressing love or the way the relationship is meant to evolve. The ego might resist the idea that these stories no longer serve us, but when we notice these narratives and recognize that they are simply projections of the ego, we can begin to rewrite them. We can let go of outdated beliefs and open ourselves to new ways of relating to our partner, ways that are grounded in the present moment and in the needs of both individuals. The more we notice the ego's attachment to these old stories, the more we create space for new, healthier narratives to emerge, ones that are based on mutual respect, understanding, and flexibility. At its core, marriage invites us to transcend the ego, not to eliminate it, but to recognize its influence and choose a different path. The ego's clinging can create division and tension, but when we notice it, we create the space for something much deeper to emerge, a connection based on love, empathy, and understanding. Marriage becomes not just a partnership between two people, but a sacred journey of shared growth and transformation. As we cultivate mindfulness and awareness of the ego's influence, we create a more harmonious, authentic relationship, one in which both partners feel heard, seen, and respected for who they truly are, not for the image or identity the ego clings to. This practice of noticing the ego is ongoing. It is not a one-time event, but a continuous journey of self-awareness. The ego will continue to arise throughout our lives, But the more we practice noticing its influence, the less power it has over us. The more we choose to respond with compassion, vulnerability, and presence, the more we dissolve the barriers the ego has created. We learn to embrace our partner as they are, without the need to change them. And we learn to embrace ourselves, without the need to defend or protect the image the ego wants to project. In this space of awareness, marriage becomes a sacred practice, a space for both partners to grow, evolve, and heal together. In conclusion, the ego in marriage is a natural part of the human experience. It will always be present, but it does not have to define our relationship. By noticing the ego's influence, whether it shows up as defensiveness, pride, control, or old stories, we can create a relationship that is grounded in love, compassion, and understanding. Marriage, at its deepest level, is an invitation to let go of the ego's clinging, to release the need for control, validation, and perfection, and to open ourselves fully to the possibility of deep, authentic connection. Through mindfulness, vulnerability, and the willingness to grow together, we can create a marriage that transcends the ego's limitations, one that allows both partners to thrive, evolve, and experience the full richness of love. As we continue this practice, we discover that beneath the ego's surface lies the vast, infinite well of love that is the true foundation of any lasting relationship. And in this space of awareness, we allow that love to guide the way, not just in our marriage, but in every aspect of our lives. If this message resonates, subscribe for daily Zen reflections and guided wisdom to help you reconnect, reflect, and become fully yourself. Until then, remember, if you want to fly, you have to give up the things that weigh you down.